Before we begin, please be aware that this podcast contains discussion of sensitive topics, such as abuse of minors, of vulnerable adults, and safeguarding practices. Some content may be distressing or triggering for listeners. This program is intended for an adult audience. If you or someone you know is affected by these issues, we encourage you to seek support from a trusted professional or a local support service. Listener discretion is advised.
Sexual abuse is a real pandemic, but we also have some people that don't believe that the sexual abuse inside the church is a reality.
Welcome to the pilot episode of Inside Safeguarding, the official podcast of the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors. From Rome, I'm William Roberts. The idea for this podcast was born from a desire to create a space for monthly reflection, a way to follow the Commission's work more closely and to listen in on conversations about safeguarding as they evolve, to stay connected to the broader challenges the Church is engaging with today. Each episode will follow a simple format. We'll start with a news recap, giving a brief overview of the latest updates from the Commission's work and publications. Then we'll move on to a guest interview with an expert working at the heart of safeguarding, either inside the Commission or beyond it. And finally, we'll take a closer look at the Commission's annual report, exploring the stories behind the numbers. But before we get into this month's news recap, it's worth taking a step back to look at how the Commission came into being. The Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors was established by the late Pope Francis in 2014. It was a unique and necessary step towards confronting the scale and depth of abuse that had taken place within the Church across decades and continents. The devastation came not only from the crimes themselves, but also from the failure of systems meant to prevent them, and from the silencing of those who tried to speak up. From the beginning, the Commission's mandate has been twofold: to advise the Pope directly, and to help local churches build credible safeguarding frameworks rooted in justice, transparency, and the dignity of survivors. The work is far from simple. It crosses languages, cultures, legal systems, and deeply ingrained habits. But the goal remains constant: to make safeguarding a central part of the Church's identity, an ongoing commitment rather than a reaction to scandal. With that in mind, let's turn to this month's developments. At the end of March, the Commission held its first plenary assembly of the year at its headquarters in the Vatican. These twice-yearly meetings allow for review, strategy, and listening, both within the Commission and to external voices. Pope Francis was scheduled to meet the group, but he had only just been discharged from the Gemelli Hospital, and due to his fragile state of health was unable to attend in person. Instead, he sent a written address, which was read aloud at the start of the third day of the assembly. His message offered more than encouragement. It was, in many ways, a moral directive. In the letter, the Pope called on the Commission and the broader Church to act as sentinels. That image, drawn from the prophet Ezekiel, someone who was tasked with warning his community when danger was near, is very powerful. A sentinel who watches carefully, warns clearly, and refuses to look away when danger approaches. This is the attitude the Church must now embrace: staying alert, acting early, and facing reality with clear eyes. Pope Francis acknowledged the damage caused not only by abuse itself, but also by the efforts to deny and cover it up. He urged the Commission to work with independence, professionalism, and what he called a prophetic outlook. That last phrase is worth holding on to. Prophets don't simply predict the future, they confront the present with truth. Safeguarding demands the same clarity and urgency. It can't be reduced to empty rhetoric or mechanical routine. This tone continued in the release of the Commission's 2024 annual report, a major focus of the plenary assembly and one of the Commission's key instruments of accountability. One of the main ideas guiding this year's report is conversional justice. This approach invites us to look beyond legal remedies and focus on deeper forms of change. Conversional justice recognizes that true healing and credible accountability require transformation from within. It demands different ways of listening, different ways of leading, and a willingness to elevate voices that had once been excluded. The report highlights real progress, the establishment of new safeguarding offices in underserved dioceses, improved data collection, and greater survivor participation in local processes. These developments are signs of real movement. At the same time, the report does not shy away from difficult truths. In many regions, safeguarding practices remain inconsistent. Resources are limited. Clergy formation still lags behind. In some places, the culture of silence remains stubbornly intact. This kind of honesty is essential. The report reads not as a checklist of achievements, but rather as a diagnosis, a chart that focuses on where we are and where we have still to get to. The report also sets the stage for what may become the Commission's most ambitious project to date, the Universal Guidelines Framework, or UGF. The UGF aims to create a consistent safeguarding foundation for the entire Church. It sets out core principles and minimum standards that can be adapted to local contexts but still ensure that wherever someone is, they are protected by real, effective structures. At present, safeguarding efforts are uneven. Some areas of the Church have strong systems, others are only beginning. This inconsistency increases risk and confusion. The UGF is not intended as a centralized mandate. It's more a collaborative tool. Yet it holds the potential to shift safeguarding practices at every level of Church life, from local parishes to pontifical councils. If it succeeds, the UGF will help the Church move beyond reactive procedures towards a proactive, accountable culture. It will create clearer ways to measure commitment, from how resources are allocated, to how training is delivered, to how survivors are supported. And finally, this month also saw a quieter but meaningful gesture. On the eve of Holy Week, members of the Commission took part in a pilgrimage of reparation and hope, walking through the holy door of St. Peter's Basilica. This pilgrimage was a visible act of memory, presence, and intention. It acknowledged the pain that remains within many parts of the Church, and carried that pain forward in a public, physical way. For many, it was a moment of reflection. It underscored that safeguarding is not just technical or legal, it's also relational, emotional, and spiritual. There's a quiet power to simply walking together as an expression of solidarity and responsibility. And so, to summarize this month, the late Holy Father called on the Commission to stay vigilant and act as sentinels. The annual report reframed safeguarding as a call to conversion and renewal. The Universal Guidelines Framework began taking shape as a much-needed anchor for global consistency, and a small group of dedicated people embarked on a pilgrimage, carrying the memory of past wounds and the responsibility to protect the future. You're listening to Inside Safeguarding. In our next segment, I'll be speaking with Patricia Espinoza, Commission member and coordinator of the Memorare Initiative. I'm William Roberts. Thank you for joining me. In this second part of the episode, we're joined by Patricia Espinoza. Patricia has been a member of the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors since 2022, and she's the coordinator of the Commission's Memorare Initiative, a project designed to strengthen safeguarding structures in some of the most resource-limited parts of the world. Today, we'll be speaking with Patricia about her role within the Commission, her experience working at the intersection of safeguarding and pastoral care, and how initiatives like Memorare are helping to move safeguarding from a set of policies to a lived, practical reality. Patricia, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much for the invitation.
Could we start off maybe with what brought you to the Commission?
Well, I have many years around the first case I saw of a case of sexual abuse was in 1984, and in a nursery, someone asked me to check because they think that there was been abusing a lot of babies in this nursery. So I asked to be the one to check these little children. So since then, I was working on the protection of minors, first of all, outside the church, and from around 10 years, I'm working in the church with this same issue, the protection of minors against sexual abuse.
What are your greatest concerns regarding the state of safeguarding today in the church, but also beyond?
Well, I said in many places that the sexual abuse is a real pandemic, and it's a pandemic that we talk a little because it's one of the most abominable phenomena that can be in our world, because it's against of the most vulnerable, the children, the adolescents, and the sexual abuse impact all the inner, the most important parts of the person in a physical way, in a psychological way, in a spiritual way, and the way that they related to others and with themselves. So it's a very traumatic experience. So when we can't protect our children from this crime, we are condemned them to have a different life, a total different life, because all the consequences of this kind of phenomenon.
Of course. And Patricia, can you help us understand the very real consequences of the absence of safeguarding in ministry to children and vulnerable people beyond numbers and policy language from your professional experience?
Well, we know that around the world, all the statistics says that one of every 4 girls and one of every 5 boys have been abused. It's a very, very terrible phenomenon because the consequences are, as I said before, in all the parts and all the essence of the person, of the individual. So, for example, even they can die 15 years before the rest of the population because of the consequences in a physical way and in a mental way. They have tumors, for example, cancer, different kind of diseases. So at the first part of the age, the part of most important development part of the people's life, we have a lot of issues, we have a lot of consequences, and we have a lot of traumatic experiences.
Do you think we can ever hope to eradicate abuse from the church? Is this a realistic goal, or is it just a pipe dream?
Well, I think it's not a realistic consideration to say that we can eradicate totally this crime, and not only inside the church, but around the world, outside the church, because sexual abuse of children and adolescents is a phenomenon that accompanied the history of the human beings. So it's a terrible phenomenon, but it's a very common phenomenon. Even our statistics is worse than many years ago. For example, we signed the children's rights in 1989, and we have worse statistics than that year. So we can make a lot of efforts. Okay, we understand that. We can prevent a lot of cases, but it's not realistic to say that we are going to eradicate this kind of problem, as I said, inside or outside the church.
What would you say are the main challenges that the Memorar Initiative has encountered in implementing safeguarding measures across all the diverse regions in which it operates?
Well, it depends on the region. It depends on the local church. We have places, countries in which the local church can work together with the civil authorities. We have places in which the civil authorities doesn't want to work together with the church. We have, for example, also ecclesiastical authorities that believes in prevention, but we also have some people that don't believe that the sexual abuse inside the church is a reality. So it depends on the region, it depends on many factors, but the key word for the prevention of sexual abuse is to work with the risk factor of the opportunity, because opportunity is the most important risk factor to sexual abuse in children and adolescents. So it is the key of our work. And Memorare, the Memorare initiative, works a lot, works in a very important way with this prevention against this opportunity risk factor.
And final question, Patricia, how does the Memorare initiative embody Pope Francis's vision for a church that actively protects minors and supports survivors?
Above all, Pope Francis was very concerned about the differences between the different local churches in different regions, specifically the Global South. He was very concerned, and he asked the Commission to work with the support and help to the local churches that lack a lot of resources because of the social injustices, about poverty, about of these kind of situations that we can see in the Global South. So he asked the Commission to work with some initiative that depends also from Voces Lux Mundi, Articles 2 and 5, but ask the Commission to develop a program or a project, and this is the initiative of the Memorare Initiative, an initiative that can help and support the local churches of this Global South, is Latin America, Africa, and most countries of Asia Oceania. So the Memorare Initiative is a capacity building that permits that these local churches that they have no resources, they can be funded, but to have the development of all this capacity in preventive measures and attention to the victims, survivors, and their families, and also making a network of professionals and social and pastoral and professional services to attend these victim survivors and to referral to the services that they need to start the healing of this traumatic experience.
Excellent. Well, Patricia, thank you so much for taking the time and for providing these valuable insights.
Thank you very much.
As part of each episode of Inside Safeguarding, we'll take a few minutes to focus on a key element of the Commission's annual report. Given that this is our first episode, it's worth pausing briefly to explain why the publication of this report marks such an important moment for the safeguarding mission. The 2024 annual report is the first of what will now become a yearly publication, and it's a milestone, not just in what it contains, but what it represents. It sets a precedent. For the first time, there is a formal public mechanism for tracking safeguarding efforts year on year, something regular and systematic, rooted in transparency and responsibility. By anchoring itself to the annual rhythm, the Commission is helping to integrate safeguarding into the Church's ordinary life, not as a crisis response, but as a constant necessary practice. It also demands something new within church institutions: ordinary and systematic data collection, a more rigorous evidence-informed approach. Over time, that consistency will help build a credible, long-term model for change. The report itself is divided into 4 main sections, each offering a different perspective on safeguarding work across the church. The first section, the Local Church in Focus, looks at specific countries whose bishop conferences were engaged in the ad limina visits during the reporting year, as well as a selection of religious congregations. The methodology draws inspiration from international models, such as the UN Human Rights Council Universal Periodic Review. It invites a careful and structured examination of local safeguarding realities. The second section, the Church's safeguarding mission in the continental regions, shifts the lens to regional trends. It draws on contributions from safeguarding practitioners working across different continents, highlighting both positive movements and persistent challenges. The third section, Safeguarding Policies and Procedures of the Roman Curia, focuses on how various dicasteries of the Roman Curia promote safeguarding through their areas of responsibility. It signals a step towards an all-of-government approach within the Church, embedding safeguarding into governance, not treating it as a separate concern. And the final section, the Church's safeguarding ministry and society, moves beyond internal structures. It looks at ministries that serve wider communities, including non-Catholic populations, underlining the Church's responsibility to ensure safeguarding wherever it has a presence. It also points to how the Church can lead by example, modelling safeguarding for wider society. Of course, any first report invites feedback, and this has come from many quarters. Church authorities have largely responded positively. Many found the report a useful resource for reflection and action, consistent with the Commission's vision of conversional justice, that safeguarding is part of an ongoing path of pastoral conversion, not a static policy. At the same time, survivors, advocates, journalists, and civil society partners have challenged the Commission to go further. A number have pointed out the need for stronger methodological rigour, including the inclusion of independent external data sources to complement information provided by church bodies. Without external verification, there is a risk that reports could be seen simply as bishops reporting on themselves. It's a fair concern, and it is one that the Commission is committed to addressing in future editions. Stakeholders from the United Nations and other civil society organisations have welcomed the publication as a meaningful first step. Many have expressed eagerness to collaborate further, strengthening the process and the credibility of future reports. All of this points to an important truth. The annual report is not an end in itself. It's the beginning of a much longer and more demanding journey. In future episodes, we'll explore different sections of the report in more detail. We'll look into the emerging data trends, the implementation challenges, and the broader questions that remain unanswered. For now, the foundation has been laid. It's not perfect, it's not complete, but it's real. And it's a starting point. That brings us to the end of this first pilot episode of Inside Safeguarding. Over the course of each month, we'll continue to follow the Commission's work, speak to those engaged in safeguarding on the ground, and take time to reflect on the wider journey towards accountability and change. If you'd like to read more about the topics we discussed today, or explore the Commission's latest articles and the annual report in full, you can visit us at tutelaminorum.org. You can also subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, where future episodes will be published regularly. Thank you for listening, and for taking the time to stay connected to these conversations. I'm William Roberts. Until next time.